my lodge stepped up. They saw that I was hurting. They supported me. There were ears there if I needed somebody to talk to. If I needed help with something, they were there.
Yeah.
I don't know where I'd be today if I didn't have that support structure.
Welcome to the symbolic lodge of conversation, where consciousness and curiosity interweave into discussion. This is All Square Podcast. I'm your host, R.L. Franks, and today's guests have been a Mason for over 20 years. He's a well-traveled man with a lot of stories and experience into the world of Freemasonry. This is the story of my brother, Al Centonze. Al, thank you for being on the podcast.
It's always a pleasure to be with you, Robbie.
Al, where did we first meet?
I'm trying to remember now. It's been a couple of years, about 4 years now?
Yeah, I think we met at a shrine event.
Yes. Matter of fact, I think it might have been when I got fezzed.
Yes, I believe it was when you did. You had more facial hair back at that time.
Yes, I did.
Listen, Al, you have 20 years of experience in this fraternity.
Mm-hmm.
You started when you were 37, you told me.
Correct.
You're 37 years old, young man. Were you searching for Freemasonry, or did Freemasonry find you?
It actually found me. I was living in Nashville, working for the city. I do IT for a living. And one of my best friends in the world, probably my best friend in the world, Patrick, worshipful brother Patrick Dennis Owen. Shout out, Patrick.
Shout out.
He had just gotten his fellowcraft degree, and we were talking about it. And he said, "Why don't you come out to dinner before the next meeting?"
So you're in Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
What's your story right now at that stage of your life? Married, kids?
So I was married. I know I have a child from a previous marriage, but I'd been married several years at that point. And it was work. It was hanging out with friends and not doing a whole lot of anything. And one day, like I said, my friend Patrick, we were talking about it. He says, "Yeah, I just joined this Corinthian Lodge over here in Nashville." And he said, "Why don't you come out to dinner, meet the brothers?"
And you're like, this
sure,
is what I want to do.
Yeah. And, we sat and they talked. They asked him questions about, exactly what was going on. I knew just the barest about Freemasonry, the stories you hear. I knew that several of our founding fathers were Freemasons, the founders of our country that put their principles into what our country is.
Yeah.
And that intrigued me. I enjoyed talking to them, and I petitioned that night.
Nice. So you meet all these guys, all walks of life, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What's your first initial reaction just seeing all these group of men together in one room?
I think it's great. I by my own nature, are very curious about many, many things. So I like to acquire knowledge. And this seemed like a place where I could do that and learn about other people, their lives, what they do, and how they do it. And I also have sort of a love of history, and Freemasonry has a very deep history. And that's also, I think, part of what drew me in.
So you're going through the process. Mm-hmm. You've already got a pretty good feel from your initial reaction, like this is a safe space. This is something I really want to start taking a journey on.
Yeah.
Did you think from the moment when you first were made and entered apprentice, did you think from all your years of experience, like this is where it was about? This is what Masonry is?
Initially, not really.
Okay.
Because I didn't have a whole lot of deep knowledge about what it was. But going through the degrees, getting my entered apprentice was the first step, and the education that came with that got me more interested in moving forward and learning more and taking those extra steps and gaining an understanding that you set goals in Masonry, but you never set a destination.
I like that. I don't think anybody has said that so eloquently. You set goals for yourself, not just a destination, because the memories and brotherhood come from the journey.
Oh, yes, very much.
What's the dynamic like in that lodge?
Oh, wow. Well, when I first joined the lodge, I was the youngest member at 37. So there was a lot of older brothers, very, very intelligent, very, they had long lives, they had a lot of life experience. It's a place that you could go, and if you had a problem, you could talk to somebody and they would do their best to help you out or give you some knowledge that might point you in the right direction. And that's something that you don't see a lot even today.
Why do you believe that is, though? Is people just busy?
Well, even more now than then. I think part of it is people's lives are so busy. There's just so much going on. There's so many things to do, so many things to see. Technology has advanced so much that it is so into our lives. I mean, I admit myself, my phone never leaves me anymore. And, I'll sit at night and what they affectionately call doom scrolling through things, oh, that's interesting. Oh, wait, go down that rabbit hole and then follow it wherever it goes. And there's a lot more, it seems like there's a lot more things to do in life. And that's part of the reason why I think we've talked outside of this about, the membership, and part of the decline is because we've lost so many of the older brothers that came in after World War II, but also there's so much going on in life that not everybody is drawn to Masonry because it's another thing they got to do because they don't understand what it brings to them.
What does it bring, in your opinion?
A family. To me, when I say a brother, I mean my brother, not even beyond the symbolic statement of it in the lodge as it's a title. These are men who I look at as my family.
Well, you hear a lot about misconceptions of the fraternity,
mm-hmm.
and you're saying family, and there could be people out here saying, well, it's a cult. It's a cult. What's one of the misconceptions that you first saw when you were in that needs to be corrected?
Well, there's a few probably, but I would most likely say that when you refer to the cult issue, is first of all, we are not any kind of religion. We do not espouse a specific religion. We encourage brothers to partake in their particular beliefs and faith systems. We don't override it or replace it with anything. I was raised Roman Catholic.
So was I.
I am now currently more of I am a Christian. I consider myself a Christian, but I'm non-denominational myself. I have my own set of beliefs that work for me, right? But they also fit with what we do in the lodge, outside of the lodge as brothers, which is about helping people and trying to be better people.
But how does a lodge get connected out into the community when it's something that apparently an older generation was like, you can't talk about it?
Yeah, that actually has been one of the pitfalls that we're trying to get ourselves out of, I think, as a fraternity.
Why do you think people were so holding it so close to the chest, though?
Well, there were times in the history of this world where if you were known to be a Mason, you were persecuted. World War II, with Nazis were going across Europe, they were confiscating all of the lodge's properties, information, their books, to try to find out who they were so that they could use that to find them and against them. So there have been times in this world where, and there still are places where being a Freemason could very even possibly be a death sentence, if not imprisonment.
And that hasn't gone away. That's actually still prevalent in modern times in certain countries in the world.
Correct.
And I want to touch upon that conversation about the World War II Germany Nazis, because when Hitler and the Nazis were taking over, they actually took over France and created a propaganda video
Yes.
And it was like a mock black and white tale of a guy who joins, and the way they use the shadowdry and the stereotypes of inferior races like the Jewish people. It was to turn you away from what the fraternity was. A case in point, right? Yeah. So this gentleman gets curious about Freemasonry. He's a politician of some sort. I haven't really watched the video. You can find it if you want to.
I have a copy if you want it.
Do you? What's it called?
What I'm trying to say is something occultist or something.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I couldn't.
We'll see if Mike can throw it up there. But it's actually like on YouTube.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And one thing about it is this guy goes in and it's like he's going through some kind of a degree that they put together. And they made like this clandestine version of Masonry to make it really intimidating, really scary, deep symbolism of stuff that people would run away from.
Oh, yeah.
And then what happens? This guy is going through the journey. And when he's going through this journey, he's getting like more indebted with these politician favors to get this done and that done. And then the stereotypes of of what the Nazis were trying to portray as an inferior race, like the Jewish people. He was the treasurer, of course. And the way the candle lighting hits over the worshipful, it's like he's in control of the lodge. The Jewish people are in control of the lodge, which is a whole bunch of garbage, just sassafras.
Yeah.
So you're in this fraternity. You've heard of these misconceptions. What's the biggest thing that would need to be conveyed to a non-Mason or somebody even interested?
One of the things I learned very early on is we are primarily a philanthropic organization. Okay. Our goal is to help. We have many charities. One of the ones that's worldwide and most people know are the Shrine hospitals. There's 22 currently, and they're building 2 more. I believe they help families with children who have various and sundry disabilities for no money. They ask nothing of these families. They take care of these kids. They take care of the families when they bring them in. And they pay nothing.
Yeah, that's a great example of how just one of many that Masonry is out in the community. Have you seen Masonry being a part on a local level, though?
Oh, yeah. When I was in Nashville, there were floods. It was 2009 or 2010.
Okay.
Nashville flooded horribly. Downtown was in feet of water. The Opryland Hotel and the mall it was horrible. And after the flooding receded, the lodges got together. Some of them donated money to help. Some of us just got out and helped with neighborhood cleanups. My house, I was lucky. I was high up enough that I didn't have a problem, but a bunch of us just went out into some of the more devastated areas and helped people clean up, just to get out there physically and help people. Charity isn't about money. It's about helping. Sometimes that is money. Sometimes that's, getting out there and physically doing that. Sometimes it's just listening to somebody.
And how did the community, how were they receptive of, that's not even the right word. How did the community react to that?
Oh, they were very thankful for any help they could get.
Sure.
There were so many organizations. I think one of the things that hurts us is we don't look for thanks. We go out, we do the work, we help where we can, but we're not looking for the accolades. We're not looking for, that bit in the newspaper or on the news.
Key to the city.
Yeah, that's not what we do. We're there to help people out, just wherever we can.
Do you feel like that sense of community has been lost through your 20 years of being in the fraternity? I want to really hammer that home because, again, with every year comes more experience, right?
So, yeah. Oh, yeah. No, definitely. I think it does. And part of that falls on us as Masons because we don't always think about the things we can do that without asking for that recognition, but doing the things just to do them sometimes. one of the things I instituted when I was junior warden at my lodge in Nashville. Our lodge by that time was in a neighborhood. It was in an old historic neighborhood, and they had a historic walk of homes. So we talked to the local historic society that managed that, and we had them start for the people to pick up their tickets at our lodge. So people would come in, and anybody who was interested, we'd give them a tour, let them know. And that same year, we instituted trick or treat. So that neighborhood is well known for the number of people that come in to trick or treat that neighborhood. I mean, people come in from counties.
Oh, wow.
They come in from outside. They put police at our building to help keep track of what was going on. And we've done that to let people know we're here. We're not just this building that sits here and looks, austere, and we're here. We're part of the community. We're trying to be part of this community. And I think Masonry needs to try to be more part of the community itself. And then I think if we start doing that, they'll start seeing what we really are.
You think sometimes that stems from bad publicity from some third-party source that maybe wrote a hit job in the newspaper or in social media, caught some conspiracy, and that Masonry has kind of like taken a step back from the community?
I think that's part of it.
Okay.
Maybe not in the past 20 years that I've been a member that we've seen a lot of that, because we've sort of not gone underground, but we're not out there.
Yeah.
But in the decades before that, you would see that situation where, negative pieces may come out about it, and it sort of makes you a little gun shy about trying to do things.
I think that just doesn't stem from our fraternity. I think that's just society, at least in America as a whole.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Everybody's more isolated. Everybody's more individualistic. Mm-hmm. Are people really, this busy, or are they distracted and they're just filling their time up?
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, well, I think it's a combination of things. So, I mean, growing up, I knew my neighbors.
Okay.
As a kid growing up. I mean, fortunately, I live in a nice town where I know my neighbors for the most part. I know all but maybe one or two of them. But you don't see that anymore. You're people who could live in a neighborhood for 10 years and not know who's living right next to them, because nobody wants to put that out there. And it makes me sad, actually, because if we did more of that outreach, not even Masonically, on a personal level, just the community you could build and the things you could do, we could do as a people in a country, would just be amazing.
I agree with you. So you become a member of this lodge. You quickly become an officer.
So I've spent my first year. So I got my entered apprentice and my fellow craft in 2004. I didn't get my Master Mason degree until January of 2005. Okay. So I couldn't be an officer that year. They were originally looking at me to become the junior steward, which is one of the members that helps serve the lodge and set up the meals and make sure everything is set up for the lodge work, for the degrees that we do and for the meetings. So I did it anyways. I was at every meeting. I was helping out, prepping dinner, getting the table set, whatever we needed done. And then so the next year I became the junior steward and went through all the chairs and all the way up through master.
What was it like becoming an officer? Each chair, and I believe every state, has certain roles and responsibilities that the newly appointed or elected officer takes on. What was it like going through that experience?
It was a really growing experience. So each position, like you said, has its own responsibilities. The stewards are responsible for making sure that the food is prepped and the tables are done and the cleanup is done after that. There are the deacons, and they're the next step up, the junior and senior deacon, and then the ward, and everybody has their job. And you grow through each position. You gain, you don't change from being one to the other. You add to your knowledge and your responsibility as you move up through the chairs.
How many years did it take before you were elected as the head of the lodge?
So it is 6 years in the chairs, and then the 7th year is the master.
What was that moment like? You're at the annual meeting. You're in the senior warden's chair. They're casting their votes for the next leader of the lodge.
Mm-hmm.
You get the results, and you have been elected to a lodge. How old?
Corinthian Lodge was chartered in 1870.
Wow.
So it had been around for quite a while.
So the vote is cast.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be soon to be the newly elected worshipful master. What's that moment like?
I was proud that they, and honored that they had the faith in me that I could be in charge of the lodge, be the master of the lodge. A little nervous because, as you're going through the chairs, you set your own expectations of what you think it's going to be sitting in the East. When you get there, it's a whole nother world. The master, in my opinion, he does not rule the lodge, although that is part of what we say. He rules and governs the lodge, but he guides the lodge. He is the person who helps maintain the harmony. And if you've done your job through the previous years, you've got your officers behind you who, if you worked through those, you've got that structure to help you do that.
It's a balancing scale.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. How, with the examples that you were a part of your year, how do you keep those scales balanced?
It can be a challenge because when it comes down to it, we're all human beings. We all have our beliefs and our preferences in life. One of the silliest things, in my opinion, looking back on it, that happened when we moved from our old building, we had to sell our old building. It was an beautiful old church. It had some gorgeous stained glass windows.
It was a church?
The building that we were in before was previously I can't remember, I believe it was a Lutheran church before we bought it. We were there for 87 years. I was the last master mason raised in that building.
Wow.
And then we had to move out. Our boiler went. We were selling the property to a developer who was turning that whole area into a big high-rise multipurpose. And now I've lost my track.
No worries. So the building gets sold.
The building got sold.
Mm-hmm.
So we were cohabitating with a lodge that had used our building when they were renovating theirs. But so one of the deals that had been made when we purchased the property was that the church got its stained glass. If that building was ever torn down, they got the windows back, but we got to keep 4 of them.
Oh, nice.
And there's some beautiful symbolism in these. One of them has this beautiful sheaf of wheat. There was the cross and crown on 2 of them, etc. The one we really wish we could have gotten was I think it was Michael, the Archangel Michael.
Oh, yeah.
That was over the east. It was beautiful, but they, of course, understandably kept that.
Of course.
So then we had to figure out what to do with them now that we had them. And we had gotten into our new building, we had renovated and all that. And we had a vote that we were going to spend X amount of dollars to have somebody look into mounting them and whatever in the lodge. And then the next meeting, we had some brothers who did not agree with that come in and want to vote again.
But the vote's already been...
The lodge, everybody that was at that previous meeting had sat down, discussed it, voted. They came in with some brothers we hadn't seen in a while because it happens.
It does. A phone call does help every so often.
And then they brought it up. And the way I had to handle it was, I let them have their discussion. And at the end of the discussion, I basically very stated, the lodge has already voted on this. We will not entertain this new motion because it's already been voted by the lodge. With all due respect, if you want to have a say, you need to be at the meetings.
Yes.
And so I tabled it, and it was never spoken of again. We went back to the original motion, and now 2 of them are sitting on the east walls, backlit and beautiful as ever.
That's incredible. I love how you incorporated the history from where that lodge was, mm-hmm. and still be able to have the old world with the new world and dynamics of the lodge. So I really appreciate you discussing the balancing of that.
Mhm.
That year goes by quick, but sometimes it's not quick enough.
No, that was personally a rough year for me.
Yeah, it drags
Yeah.
sometimes, and there's a lot of weight. Did you feel like there was a lot of weight on your shoulders? Did you feel like Atlas carrying the world in your lodge dynamic?
At times, yes, but fortunately, I had a lot of support from the other brothers in the lodge. We had built a good structure. We had all good men, all working towards the same goals. So a lot of it was just once we agreed, we moved on.
That's very beautiful, that harmony.
Yeah.
But you were an officer, you were a past master then.
Mhm.
Lodge leadership goes up, 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 down, 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 up, down, up, down, up, down. What's one of the biggest hindrance do you think a lot of worshipfuls getting elect need to focus on?
One of the phrases that comes up in Masonry is the question is asked, why are we doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer you can get a lot of times is because we've always done it that way.
Oh, I've heard it.
It is the most dangerous phrase in the world. Now, if you look at it and say, we've always done it that way, and here is why, and it is still a valid way to do it, then you move forward with it. If you look at it and come back and say, well, but that doesn't make sense anymore, that doesn't work anymore, then you have to figure out a solution and move forward with that.
Do you ever see a lot of, how do I want to say this? Primary officers, kind of like the top three.
Mm-hmm.
Lack of preparation, lack of showing the blueprints of how that year is going to be, and kind of not only just taking his officers, but his membership and even the past masters on what his vision is.
Oh yeah, I mean that can happen, and I can honestly say that I've been guilty of that in part as well. Communication is so important when you're moving up and expecting to move into that chair. Once you get to the junior warden in the South, that's you're 1.5 steps away from being master. That's when you should start looking at what do you want to do when you're in that big chair, and then communicate it. Communicate it with the officers below you, with the brothers in the lodge, with your senior warden, your worshipful master. Communication is very key to making sure things go. Nothing's ever going to go perfect,
right?
But as best as you can.
I'm always the kind of guy that, I'd much rather swing and miss than regret never taking the swing.
Yes, yes.
Is there something that you may have regretted that you should have capitalized on?
Yeah, actually, I am notorious for not asking for help sometimes when it's all around me. All I have to do is open my mouth and ask. I guess that's part of, upbringing is, you got to do the thing and you can do it. And if it gets tough, you just, gird your loins and keep going,
Yeah, absolutely. We talk about strength in the fraternity.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about support in the fraternity. Have you seen examples of that support besides in the community, but with you yourself, or even examples of other brethren that needed that support during a time where it felt like the sky was falling?
Oh, myself personally, my year as master.
Okay.
During my early in my year as master, I found out that my wife was having an affair.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
And it really, obviously hit me hard.
Yeah.
And I struggled. I was in a very, very dark place personally, emotionally, mentally. And my lodge stepped up. They saw that I was hurting. They supported me. There were ears there if I needed somebody to talk to. If I needed help with something, they were there.
Yeah.
I don't know where I'd be today if I didn't have that support structure.
How did you feel? Was it just like natural, like a family reaching out to help you, or did it did you feel the genuineness, the authenticity of it?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I had gotten to know these men over the 7 years that I've been going through the chairs, and when I talk about brothers, I talk about them as brothers, not in the symbolic sense of the lodge, but as family. My lodge brothers are my family.
You said something, I see this reoccurring theme. That's what I love doing this podcast, family. Speaking of family, what did your family think when you joined? You need a light?
Oh, I'm right here.
Okay, good. What did the family think when, you joined and now you're the head of this organization?
Really, they didn't. My family, my personal family, didn't have a lot to say about it one way or the other. I was in Tennessee; they were in New Jersey because that's where
Oh,
they lived. But they knew, and I didn't keep anything from them or anything like that. And my dad made a few jokes because that's the way he is. But they were supportive of it. They saw what it was doing for me. Um, and of course, who knows you better than your own family?
right.
So they thought it was a good thing.
That's great.
Yeah.
So you're a part of this lodge in Tennessee, Corinthians, and then you make your way up to Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, up to
Yeah, it's
Ohio.
up.
Yeah. How did you find a lodge? Was it years before you found a lodge, or did you find one recent?
When I moved up, of course, I had to get settled into to working out of the place I was working out of now. And I did a lot of traveling with my job across the country. So my first year or two, I was more about just making sure that was all good. But I had started looking around. I went to the Grand Lodge of Ohio's website and looked up the lodge locator to see where the nearest lodges were. And I saw there was one in Deshler, which I live in Lipsick, Ohio.
Okay.
Um, when I was doing my search, I found Ottawa Lodge, which was closed down, I think, for 3 or 4 years at that point. They had turned in their charter, which would have been right down the road from me. There was a lodge up in Deshler, and then there was Finley Lodge. I went and visited the lodge in Deshler, and there were great guys, made me feel right at home, brought me in. And then one day I was sitting having a cigar in the cigar shop in Finley, and there was a gentleman sitting there with an orange cap and a Masonic belt buckle.
Okay.
Worship Brother Ken Chamberlain.
Phenomenal guy.
I see his belt buckle and I say, "Are you a traveling man?" He says, "Yes, I am." And we start getting into a conversation over cigars, and we talk about Finley Lodge. He said, "Well, we meet on the first and third Wednesdays. Come on out and join us." And the most amazing thing about it for me is I felt like I was home in my home lodge, my mother lodge in Tennessee.
Now, how beautiful is that? I mean, you're miles away from your home lodge. Your family's
400 miles
from your home lodge.
from my home lodge.
Your family's all the way in New Jersey.
Yep.
You actually, what impresses me about this, you actually took the time and actually visited. I think a lot of people just try to find the closest lodge to them, whether they're a Mason or they're not a Mason. They just try to find the closest lodge to them and, well, this is what it is. And then sometimes they stay, sometimes they're like, this isn't for me. And they bounce out of they decide that the fraternity is not for them. So would you say, talking to somebody who's maybe a younger version of you, take those times, get to know, like you did in Tennessee, when you're having just a dinner with someone?
Oh, definitely. Everybody's different. Every lodge is different. I mean, we all have the same principles. We all have the same goals, but it's like every individual. Lodges have their own personality, and you need to find the one that fits you best. So even if you're interested in Freemasonry, but say you go and you don't you say, hey, this isn't really working for me. Ask questions. Say, this is what I'm looking for. Maybe they can put you in touch with some lodge that can fit you better.
I like that. I think that's something that needs to be really told to both people searching for the fraternity,
Mhm.
as well as other men who have to be relocated for work or in other opportunities. So you petition, well, you pluraled this lodge because
Yeah.
you're already a Mason.
Right.
You're still a Mason.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. So for that, since it's different state, it's dual membership.
Okay. Yeah, that is
So
proper.
I started visiting Finley Lodge and came to the meetings, was at every meeting, except when I was out of town, if it was on that week. Got to meet the brothers, got to know them better, hang out, afterwards we go have cigars somewhere and talk about, and see how the lodge, was progressing, feeling more and more comfortable. And then I had a conversation with worship brother, Nathan Weicker.
Oh, great guy.
He approached me. He said, listen, so we had one of our brothers was going to England, back to England. He was not an English Mason. He was an Ohio Mason, but he was going home. And we had another person drop out of the line. And he said, I would really love it if you would be my junior warden. I've known this man less than a year.
But you'd still knew him.
Well, I knew him, but I mean, on a time scale.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, part of one of the things you get out of the fraternity. If I meet a brother anywhere, I know he's a brother. I know what he's been through to get there. And so I guess there's more of a bond there than with just an average person I might meet, because we've been through the same thing. No matter where out of the world he's come from, I know what he's been through.
Throughout your travels, have you had those experiences? Could have been in an airport, could have been right at the gas station.
Yeah.
And you just bump into somebody who has a ring on, has a license plate, anything like that? Do you have any experiences of just meeting brothers on the road?
Oh yeah. It happened when I was traveling I used to work for Mars, doing site support IT, their manufacturing facility across the country. And I would travel to California or wherever. I would run into people in the airport, waiting for the airplane, and we'd start talking. Hey, where are you from? And we just have, base conversations about, different thing, anything, not even about Masonry. But one of the funniest things that happened to me was before I was even a Freemason.
Okay.
I had just petitioned, and I'd put my petition in, and in Tennessee, in Masonry, you have districts in each state, which is groupings of lodges by geographical region.
Okay.
Finley Lodge is in the 10th district.
I'm in the 11th.
You're the 11th.
Yep. It's a category of it's counties all mapped out through the state, and so many counties are a part of a different district. I believe Ohio has 25.
I believe so.
Anyway, you were saying.
But so in Tennessee, one of the things they do is they send out their monthly, and in that is the name of someone who has petitioned. So if I petitioned, it goes out and they read that in Lodge. They say, so Corinthian Lodge has so-and-so who's petitioned for the 3 degrees. I was working for the city of Nashville at the time, and I did IT all over the city in all different departments. 2 weeks after I put my petition in, I'm going to different departments, and all of a sudden brothers are coming out of the woodwork. Oh, hey, Al, I hear you petitioned to Corinthian Lodge. Let me know when you get your degrees. I want to be there. Let me know if you need any help working on your return. I'll help you out. I hadn't even had my first degree.
They want to be a part of that.
But they want to be part of that.
During your journey into something that you're not really familiar about yet.
Yeah, they're already there supporting me before I've even begun my journey.
That's beautiful. What a testament.
Yeah. It was a little freaky.
Of course.
But it really felt great. I mean, these are people I had known for years, because I had worked with them through my IT job. I'd met these people, I'd talked to them, hung out with them, while I was working on their stuff.
But how did you know they were Masons?
No. But I didn't really know anything about Masonry. I didn't really know what to look for. I didn't know, Yeah. And, some people don't always wear rings, or they don't wear, most people when they're at work, they don't wear their pins or anything. I mean, I wear my ring all the time unless I have to take it off for something that could cause a problem, but you don't always see that, or you don't even think to look for it, especially if you don't know what you're looking for.
You're part of Finley at this time in your story. You're now been asked to be an officer, not just starting again from the bottom, but going right to, third from the top.
One of the stationed officers, yeah.
Yeah. Lodge culture, what's that like compared to Tennessee? Because now you can go look at the Tennessee culture, and now you're looking into the Ohio culture. Yeah. What's that like? Culture shock?
Not really.
Okay.
It had a lot of the feel of my lodge in Tennessee when I left there. So my lodge in Tennessee evolved a lot during the years I was down there and active. We started out with, like I said, I was the youngest Master Mason in the lodge, and then we had a lot of some more younger brothers come in, and we had a lot of growth, but when I left, we were at a really strong lodge, just like Finley here. We still do down there. I love it. I still keep in contact with them regular basis. I still get my my monthly from the secretary down there. He emails it to me, so I know what's going on. So the feeling in that aspect was like I said, it was like being at home. If I hadn't have felt that comfortable, I wouldn't have accepted.
What's the culture like? You see some narratives being told online that, oh, I'm just joining a business meeting. Is that what it was like going to Finley Lodge? Is there any activities going on in the lodge? Or are you just going to a meeting, going home?
No. Well, being a bit of a cigar person myself, and there are other members of the lodge. Well, most times after the lodge meeting was over, somebody would say, hey, we're going over here for cigars, and we're going to sit and we're just talk. And you didn't have to smoke to go to those get-togethers.
How many people are in like a group?
Usually between 4 to 10, depending on what's going on and who can come and who can't.
All different ages?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Varying ages from, nowadays in their 20s to in their, 60s.
Talk about a wealth of knowledge. Talk about building bridges in different generations.
Oh, definitely. The life experience that you can put together in a group like that is phenomenal.
What you've also mentioned that there's also extracurricular activities at your lodge that some people might be interested in their hobbies in life. What was that again?
So we have a Dungeons and Dragons club.
That's right.
At Finley, the Finley Dungeon Masters. We currently have 2 groups with 2 dungeon masters running 2 different D&D campaigns. We meet about once a month. We got to pick we usually meet on a Sunday, almost exclusively, because that's the day the building is used the least for anybody. And we have a great time. We've been going for 2 years now. We started out with about 7 of us. And then at one point I was running the game, and I had 12 players.
Okay.
Which for anybody who plays Dungeons and Dragons that's a lot of people to run a campaign on. So then one of our players decided, hey, I want to put my hand out at being a DM, running the campaign myself.
Is that like a narrator? I don't know anything about Dungeons and Dragons. I know it's like a kind of a tabletop role play game.
Yeah, it is. It's so a dungeon master is a person who gives you the narrative, guides you through the adventures, plays all the monsters and all the extra characters. Think of the dungeon master as the person who gets to play all of the backup characters in any movie.
Okay.
The bartender and the cop that's on the street or whatever, he has to be all those people for the players, and they go through and they make their decisions, and sometimes you're rolling dice to see if you can do something or not. And a lot of times there's just what they call role playing, which is basically you're just sitting around a table acting out what your character would do.
So you're building brotherhood, you're building these fellowships. This exclusively only for Freemasons?
Oh no. We have spouses who play. We had actually we got a brother out of this.
Really?
So one of our first beginning players came in with a friend, and he ended up petitioning, not Finley Lodge, because he lived closer to another lodge. So he petitioned Mount Corey and became a Mason.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So you're opening this up. People are getting to know other people, and he's like, you know what? This is a group of guys I want to be around. That's beautiful. And the cigar and the conversation. I love having conversations with brethren from all walks of life, because they all have a story. They all have an origin story.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Staying on the family topic, you were into genealogy, right? You mentioned that off air. But you said, I didn't ask this question, actually. Was your father a Freemason?
I have nobody in my entire family that I've been able to find was a Freemason. I am the only one. Now, as we had discussed before we started, I'm adopted. My father's, my person who I refer to as my father and my mother, my father's family came from Italy in 1921. His parents both came over from Italy between World War I and World War II.
Wow.
So he's first generation American born Italian, raised in Brooklyn. My mom's family, old Pennsylvania family, but all the digging I've done, I've never been able to find anybody in any of their histories that was a Freemason. Recently, in the past several years, I've been able to get in contact with my birth mother. And we spent time together in that. Yeah. And there's nobody on that side of the family either that I'm aware of.
What's it like? How old were you when first off, you got in contact? How did that happen?
So about 5-6 years ago, after pretty much when I moved up to this area, I was having conversations with my parents. We were talking about different stuff, and they've never kept it a secret. I've known since I was, probably a tween that I was adopted. Okay. When they thought it was appropriate to my sister is also adopted. So we knew. But I never had the urge to go find, because this is my family. These are the people that raised me. This is my family. They will always be my family. There's nobody you can replace them. Right. But for health reasons, obviously, I've had some heart issues. I'm type 2 diabetic. Trying to find out what the rest of my genetic history is, I started getting curious. Now, the only thing they had was a last name. They didn't have a first name. They had nothing. So I started doing some digging. I went on Ancestry.com. I went on 23andMe. I did both DNA tests. And out of that, I got a message from a first cousin out of the Ancestry.com. And she reached out to me and said, "Hey, I see we're first cousins." And she started asking me some specific questions about where I was born, when I was born, birthday wise. And after some back and forth, she said, "Well, I know who your birth mother is. Would you be interested in contacting her?"
What did that moment feel like?
It was, wow, there's no words for. Sure. I mean, there's nerves, because now this is somebody, and I'm in my 50s now, that I have not had in my life, my entire life. I don't know what the circumstances were about me being put up for adoption. And so, but I was a little excited because I was looking. Yeah. And so I said, yeah, that would be great. So I said, you give her my information. If she wants to contact me, she can contact me. I gave my phone number. I said, if she wants to call me, have her call me. And then, so I get a call from her, and we start talking on the phone, and, we were talking about, what exactly happened. She was 16 years old when she got pregnant, or 15 when she got pregnant, 16 when she had me. And they made her give me up for adoption. And just through that, I found out I had, 2 half sisters, and, yeah, it was weird, but not in a bad way weird. It's just interesting now that I have this whole new family that I never had before.
When she gave you up at the time,
Yeah.
what state was this in?
Florida. Excuse me. Yeah, I was born in Hollywood, Florida.
Okay.
Florida apparently was a big state back in the 60s for adopting kids out. And their laws there are very, very strict about adoption papers, records being sealed.
Oh.
So you need to get a court order from a judge to unseal those records, and they don't give them out. So, and I understand that for privacy reasons, you may be looking for a parent or a child, and they may not be interested in talking to you. So it was just so. I mean, the DNA test was a shot in the dark, hoping that somebody close enough to me might know something.
How old do you remember being adopted?
Well, I was 4 weeks old.
Oh, that's right.
4 weeks old.
That's right. That's right. For those of you who didn't know, yeah, you're 4 weeks
sorry,
old.
yeah,
That's right.
That was a little information. Yeah, I was 4 weeks old when I was adopted. My parents were on vacation with my aunt and uncle in Florida, visiting my grandmother. They had talked about they had already adopted my sister 3.5 years earlier. They were looking at adopting another baby, and they were looking for a boy. And it just so happened that while they were there, I was up for adoption. So the week they were there, they went. My dad and my uncle were out golfing in Florida. I think they were at Pebble Beach.
Okay.
Any golfers are out there, you'll know what I'm talking about. And one of the caddies came out onto the golf course, found my dad and my uncle out there golfing, and said, Mr. Centonze? They both go, yes. Al Centonze? Yeah. Sir, your wife just had a baby boy.
What?
That's what he said. He told him. Well, I mean, the message got sent out there. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. That is a biological possibility. There's, oh, sorry, sir. Well, and then so the caddy. So they get back. They're loading their stuff in the car, and somebody comes back out from while they're loading up because they had the tags. Like, this is your car? Yeah, you Al Centonze? My dad goes, yeah. He goes, yeah. I have a message here from your wife that she has a baby boy. Then it clicked that they had been talking about adopting. So my folks went on vacation, and I was their souvenir.
How beautiful, though.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, that they were living in New Jersey at the time. So they went through all the paperwork. By the end of the week, they had adopted me, and they drove home, and I lived there till I was about 8. Then my dad got transferred to Cleveland for the company he was working for. And I lived in a little town called Northridgeville till I don't know. Till I graduated high school. I went to the Air Force and traveled around a bit there.
Thank you for your service.
You know, we do what we do for the safety of this country.
Yeah.
And that was during the Cold War, so I didn't have to do a whole lot. But yeah, so while I was in, they moved back to New Jersey. So when I got out, that's where I went back to.
We're coming up to this end of this episode. I really appreciate you just being an example and a testimonial of what this fraternity can do. And this sense of family.
Yeah.
Both the family you adopted, the family you reconnected, and the family you made not only in Tennessee, but across this country.
Oh, yeah.
Even from brethren who I know you met worldwide as well.
Mm-hmm.
My last question for you.
Okay.
When did you know that this is what Freemasonry? Is there a story that sticks out that says this is what Freemasonry is all about?
Okay, yeah, actually I've got a really good one.
Good.
I don't know what year. I was not the master at this time. I think I was junior or senior deacon.
Okay.
And one of our brothers said, "Hey, I've got a man that I know who it was coming up on Christmas. He was the auto mechanic at the dealership that he took his car to, and he knew the guy well. Said he's on some hard times. He just needs a little help with Christmas." So we all voted to write a check for $1,000. This man could give his family a Christmas. That's not the end of it. We didn't tell him where the money came from. Nobody told him. He figured it out. Within a year, He was a brother. And on top of that, he did not use all that money. He gave $400 of it to another family that needed it more than he did before he even figured out where it came from.
What did he say when he became a Mason? He didn't feel obviously obligated. I guess I got to join this now.
No, because we tried not to let him know where the money came from.
Right.
That's, he was so appreciative of what we did for his family, not even him, for his family, that he felt that he needed to be part of doing that for others.
That is my brother, Al Centonze. I'm R.L. Franks, and you are all square. Thank you, Al.
My pleasure.
Man, I'm going to get emotional just thinking about that. Hey, R.L. Franks here. Thanks again for watching today's episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, if you believe someone can benefit from the message that we provided on today's podcast, send it over to them. You may inspire them.